All right, so I want to kick us off with a question, just kind of set the stage. What is Splunk currently doing around AI? We can do a sort of round robin. Somebody has already raised their hand. It looks like that was a little trigger happy. So we're going to go into this content to begin with. I believe, Jeff, you're going to kick us off here.
Yeah, let me get started and kind of walk through how we think about this when customers ask us this question. So you can really think about our involvement in AI and our focus in AI on three major areas. And I think we're going to kind of walk through each of these three areas in the beginning of this office hours and hopefully give you guys a good perspective on all of it. So the first one is what we call embedded AI. And this is how, Splunk is, has been and will continue to be embedding AI directly into the platform and directly into our premium products like enterprise security and ITSI and Splunk Observability Cloud in order to, just kind of help you get your security, your observability, your IT operations outcomes at a faster, better, stronger pace. So it's basically pouring gasoline on, the capabilities and the outcomes that you get today with our products. And then a lot of customers find that, whether they want to tweak the AI and ML that we ship out of the box, or whether they need to meet their own customized use cases, because Splunk itself is so customizable and extensible, our customers have the expectation to be able to customize and extend their own use of AI and ML to meet their own use cases. And so we have a lot of capabilities around customized and customizable AI and ML. And then finally, and this is kind of really new to the scene, is I would say every customer, I would assume everybody on this call, and certainly Splunk is a really good example of this as well. Everybody's racing to develop new AI applications, a lot of new generative AI applications, and we're trying to bring them to market quickly. And so, in the process of doing that, we need to monitor and to secure those applications in a similar way to how any other critical business application has been monitored and secured. And so a lot of times customers ask us, hey, what can I do to better monitor, to better observe, to better secure this new generative AI that my company is developing? And so we have capabilities around that. So we're thinking about those three areas. Bailey, let's hit the next slide, and I want to kind of zoom in a little bit on the embedded AI first. And like I said before, our goal here, if we're really just to summarize it, is to boost productivity for the outcomes that you get with our products, by leveraging the AI that we bake within it. And so here are basically two customer testimonials that we've already gotten. One for our observability assistant, our AI assistant in Observability Cloud, and then the other one for the AI assistant in enterprise security. These are, one just came out of preview and is now generally available, and we're still in private preview with enterprise security. But you'll see here in these quotes, this is about like, hey, this used to take me many minutes, maybe even hours to do, and the AI is cutting that down and making that run much more quickly. So we're really looking at saying, how can we apply AI to just simply perform the tasks that humans used to do, or to accelerate those tasks and make you be able to do them faster? Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of like, how do we do this from an architecture and a marketecture perspective? This is kind of what we're showing our customers. So at the very bottom of of this layered stack, we have our Splunk data platform that everybody has deployed, everybody's familiar with the capabilities of. And then again, at the very top of this diagram, we have our security practitioners and our observability practitioners who are trying to, get results from and achieve particular outcomes, from the platform. And so how do we do this? What does our AI capabilities look like? Well, riding on top of that data platform are really four major AI capabilities that we've embedded in. There's machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, and agentic AI. So you guys have probably, everybody on the call is probably familiar with the Machine Learning Toolkit. If not, we'll talk a little bit about that quickly. But that's been around for a while, and that really helps unlock those machine learning capabilities. We also have our Data Science and Deep Learning Toolkit, which extends the ability of machine learning into things like neural networks, right? So you have the ability to do some model training and model inference using deep learning. And then we've really started to invest in generative AI and agentic AI, both in a kind of a pre-built fashion with our AI assistants, as well as some customizable capabilities that we're now adding in to the machine learning toolkit and the deep learning toolkit to assist you in doing some generative AI. And then agentic AI is really kind of where we're seeing the industry moving next. And if you have never heard about agentic AI, no problem. I'm going to explain it here in a minute. But that's really taking the AI to the next level. And all of these capabilities are really, again, helping to accelerate the detection, investigation, and response that you guys as users are trying to achieve in order to achieve your security and observability outcomes. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to kind of focus in on the key embedded AI that I'm going to talk about here for the next few slides are the different AI assistants that we've been developing and that we are actively bringing to market. So the very first one is the AI assistant for SPL. This has been generally available for just under a year now for all of our Splunk Cloud customers. And really what it was purpose built to do was to allow users to more quickly and more effectively learn and author and understand SPL queries in order to search the data more effectively. Everything in Splunk starts with and is underpinned by our search processing language, SPL. If you are an SPL expert, you're going to get tremendous value from the platform. And if you do not know SPL, then you're not going to get as much value from the platform. So the AI assistant for SPL was purpose built to address that challenge of trying to get everybody to become SPL proficient so they can get the most value from the platform. Next slide. So we're going to demonstrate this here in the demo, but I want to talk about something that we just recently released. So we're in public preview with personalization, but it's literally going to go generally available, I think, next week in the 1.1 version of the assistant, which is personalization. So, a lot of times customers will ask us, hey, like what's the difference between, using ChatGPT versus the AI assistant for SPL? And there's certain things that we think, gives our AI assistant an edge over some, public LLM like ChatGPT, and personalization is a really good example of this. What we're now doing is we're collecting the index names, source type names, and field names in your environment, and we're using that information during the SPL generation in order to provide a more accurate response. So you'll see in the top screenshot, without personalization, the assistant might have returned something like index equals and then a placeholder index. Whereas with personalization, it's actually finding the correct index for you and substituting that directly in the query. And we'll see that here in the demo in just a moment. So that's a really exciting capability that's coming. It's currently in public preview and currently coming GA here in the next week or two. Next slide. All right, so let's roll the demo. This is kind of me doing a brief 2-minute demo of our write SPL capability, which is really the flagship capability of the assistant. This is where we're going to provide a natural language prompt in order to have the assistant help us create an SPL query so that we don't have to author that query from scratch. Roll that film, Bailey.
Write SPL lets users create search queries using natural language. Let's say our security analyst, new to Splunk, gets an alert about inbound traffic from a restricted region. They suspect an AWS security group change, but they're not sure how to write the SPL query needed to investigate. Instead of spending time on trial and error searches or waiting for others to help, they simply ask the AI assistant, write SPL to determine who made modifications to any AWS security groups. The assistant generates an SPL query immediately. While generative AI results may need review and updates, this initial suggestion saves our analyst significant time over starting from scratch. Now, a common question we get asked is, how is this different from ChatGPT? Well, one key advantage is our optional personalization feature, which, as you can see in these results, incorporates your index, source type, and field names automatically, making the results more accurate and ready to run in your environment. The assistant is also conversational, allowing iterative refinement to your original prompts. Common follow-ups include specifying filters or formatting conditions for dashboards, fixing inaccurate or ambiguous prompts, exploring field names and values for deeper understanding of your data, and getting investigation suggestions on specific incidents. Our analyst now refines the results by asking the assistant to output the results in table format. The assistant updates the SPL with the table command, making the results easier to read and visualize. Using the Open and Search button, we can now run the suggested query to answer our original question: who did make those changes to the AWS security group? Upon reviewing the results, we see authorized security group ingress appears as the AWS CloudTrail event. Our analysts can use the assistant's conversational ability to better understand the meaning and importance of this field value by asking, what is authorized security group ingress? The assistant provides a clear explanation, saving time and offering critical context. This technique applies across many complex data sources like Windows event logs, cloud audit logs, and more, helping analysts investigate faster and with greater confidence.
Man, I mean, Bailey, I have a question. Who did that demo? Because my God, it was good. I mean, they nailed it. I need to hire that person and pay him a ton of money. Okay. No, so those are kind of some of the capabilities, the key capabilities of Ready SPL. You saw the personalization happen in there, and then you heard me talking about conversationality, and that's one thing that I really want you guys to take away from this is as I've started to kind of tinker with the assistant and try to figure out what are some of the things that I can do with it in order to facilitate those common challenges and problems that I had when I was working with Splunk. One of those really cool examples is what you saw me do at the end there, which is take a field name or take a field value that you don't fully understand. You don't understand either what it is or why it matters. Think about Windows event logs. There's a lot of fields in a Windows event log that communicates a lot of information. But if you don't understand what those fields are and what their values represent, then you're missing critical information. And so, we can actually leverage the assistant right in the product to be able to answer those questions. And forward-looking statement here, I'm actually really excited about the fact that we're currently in development right now on bringing the AI assistant directly into the search and reporting UI. So another good example of why choose, Splunk over, say, ChatGPT or something else. It's the workflow integration. As of right now, the assistant is available directly in Splunk, but as a separate app. But we're going to bring this into the search and reporting UI and just have it available to you right there as well. Next slide.
Right SPL lets users.
Okay, that was a good demo, but we don't need to watch it again. Okay, so a couple of key links, and I think, Bailey, we're going to provide this entire presentation for everybody so they don't need to feverishly, screen grab anything here. But there's a couple of different key links that we wanted to make sure y'all were aware of. If you want to kind of get some more information about the assistant, head to the product page. Ultimately, you're going to go to Splunk Base to download the app. Of course, we have documentation on Splunk Docs. And then about 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, we actually did a tech talk where we went and kind of peeled this back onto the covers and showed how this thing worked. So if you're kind of curious how the assistant works, you can watch that technical deep dive as well. Next slide. Okay. So then that's the AI assistant for SPL. The next one I want to talk about is the AI assistant in Observability Cloud. And what's really exciting about this is actually paying off that vision of being agentic inside of Splunk. So I'm sure some of you have heard the term Agentic AI, and I'm willing to bet that many of you haven't, or if you have, you're not sure what it is. So Agentic AI is really, if you think about what I just demonstrated with the AI assistant for SPL, it's a fairly basic chatbot experience where you're going to provide a prompt. We're going to do a little bit of prompt engineering and RAG, and then we're going to send that to the LLM and provide you the response. But what we're seeing AI evolving to is this concept of agentic AI. This is where we actually rely on the AI to take multiple steps in order to achieve an outcome. And so in this particular case, this might be a build slide. Let's go ahead and click next and hope that it builds something out here. It does. All right. So what the user can do is they're going to provide a prompt. That prompt is actually going to start and go through an orchestration layer. And the orchestration layer is going to look at the user's prompt and try to reason what are they ultimately trying to do. Then it is actually going to call upon multiple different skills that it has the ability to go call on and use. And those skills can be AI in nature, they can be non-AI in nature. So like a really good example is one skill is we could go and actually turn the prompt into a set of signal flow, which is basically how we query metrics in Observability Cloud. And then we can take that signal flow result and actually call an API to obtain the results. And then once we obtain those results, we can actually summarize those back into into text. So that right there is a multi-step process that's going to require kind of agentic orchestration. Next slide, please. So we have just gone generally available with the AI Assistant in Observability Cloud. For any of you that are currently Observability Cloud customers, this is something you could get benefit from right away. If you're not an Observability Cloud customer, we highly recommend you look at that entire platform for your cloud native and next gen application observability. Basically, what that allows us to do is we can be looking at our APM service tree. We can see in the service tree that the checkout service is having a problem. Our traditional path to investigating that is to click screen by screen, go look at the metrics, go look at the traces, go look at the logs, and see if we can reason out why this problem is happening. With the AI assistant, we can actually automate that whole process by asking it to tell us what's wrong with the checkout service. It's going to go and look at all that data and try to reason out what's happening and provide that response back in natural language. It's pretty cool stuff. And then the last assistant that we're working on is our AI assistant in enterprise security. This is currently in private preview. And so if you're interested in becoming part of the preview program, excuse me, you can reach out to your account team and see if you can get yourself signed up in that. And basically, the AI assistant in enterprise security is sitting directly within the incident review panel, and it's going to help the analyst, that tier 1 analyst, accelerate those really standard incident investigation steps that they have to do with a few key skills. The first one is to summarize findings. That's taking all the information you see on the screen and just providing a natural language description of what's going on in that incident. You can read that first to kind of get oriented to that incident before you get started. Then you can ask the assistant to help suggest investigative next steps, inclusive of SPL generation, similar to what we saw with the AI assistant for SPL. And then finally, to close out that investigation, you always need to create that post-incident summary report for compliance reasons. And so that's really taking the entirety of what's happened on that incident, all the steps that the analyst has taken, and turn that into a natural language text that can be added into the incident as a report. Well, we're automating that entire process with generative AI. So those are the capabilities of the AI assistants that we currently have, and we are not going to stop there. Again, a forward-looking statement. You can expect Splunk to be investing in embedding AI pervasively throughout the platform. We are going to bring AI assistants into things like Dashboard Studio. We are going to bring AI assistants into things like data management and getting data in order to help you guys understand how to get something in, how to parse a field. Is my data flowing the way I expect? Those types of things. So those are all the things that we're looking at right now in terms of embedding AI within the portfolio. And I think at this point, I'm going to turn it off to the next person to cover our customizable AI and ML.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So I'll start with customizable AI. So I'm going to go over some of the newest releases on MLTK, which is the Machine Learning Toolkit, and DSDL, which is the Data Science and Deep Learning Toolkit. So in this, the MLTK, the newest release, we have something very exciting called the AI Commander. So I'll give some insights into what that actually looks like, the why, the hows, and then speak to LLM and RAG functionality and capabilities. And again, we're going to share all this presentation materials with you after the fact. So there's a lot of good documentation and resource links that we've included in some of these slides. So definitely use that to your advantage as you go through this. And Bailey, this is up to you. If we have enough time, we could try to play it. If not, we could just use this as a reference for later. I'm not sure. I think you're muted.
Yep, sorry. We're running a little bit tight on time. If anyone really
Okay.
wants us to watch this demo right now, feel free to raise your hand. I think that might be a good gauge of interest.
Okay.
Or we can come
Looks
back.
like it's
We can roll it at the end, time permitting. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll circle
Okay.
back to this.
okay. Sweet. You could go to the next slide. So what's new? LLM. Oh, excuse me. The previous slide you were just at. There we go. So what's new in MLTK 5.6? LLM integrations, enhance Onyx. So Onyx is the neural network model that Jeff was speaking to from prior, and also fixed vulnerabilities. So upgrading some of the OpenSSL and certificates and things of that matter. So the why, right? So why are we extending MLTK to external LLMs? Well, it makes underlying data and technology accessible to also non-technical business people or users to rely on natural language processing. Instead of just using SPL or running through perhaps more like complicated workloads. If you're able to externalize an LLM, you can rely on the large language model to do all that inferencing for you and to process natural language queries or prompts and do the heavy lifting there, right? So we have some integrations coming out, OpenAI, Gemini, Bedrock, Anthropic, and also a new search command that will allow users to pass that data to the external LLM. And this is also a capability that I'm going to talk to you later around DSDL, but it's important to know that in the machine learning toolkit, which is, I'd say, a more user-friendly or I'd say perhaps like business user tool or basic Splunk user tool to familiarize yourself with some machine learning algorithms and models. It's probably one of the best ways to externally connect and leverage an LLM. So we could go to the next slide. Okay, so what is it? So again, we talked about connecting to external LLMs. So in the screen, you can see like some connection management. So you'd have it basically a user interface to manage your configuration. And then these are the current support. If you want more information, the ERD is also there. You can go next. Okay, so now the data science and deep learning toolkit. So MLTK, I'd say, is great for business users or perhaps not the data science or machine learning individual. With DSDL, it allows for more traditional ML workloads. So you'd be running a lot of these workloads and perhaps like Jupyter notebooks, relying on like TensorFlow or PyTorch, some of the traditional machine learning libraries and packages. But the biggest update here is the ability to extend this to allow for vectorization of data and to connect to an external LLM. So with this capability, we now have in this first release the ability to leverage Ollama as our LLM, and we have different vector DB options, but Mistral is the one I'll go through. And now you have the ability to utilize a RAG pattern or retrieval augmented generation to not only run search queries with SPL and tangent feed that's in the LLM as context, but you can also add in your own document directory into that equation. So I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so the project, yeah. So the overall architecture, right, is that DSDL container. So it's a similar process. We're still running everything on Docker at the moment. I'm currently working on Kubernetes, and there's talk to run it on different types of I guess infrastructure and services. So be on the lookout for that as well. I'm talking about OLAM and Milvus, but understand that the configuration from the DSDL container or from the RAG pattern itself could also connect to various different external LLMs or vector DBs. So if you're more familiar with like ChromoDB or Azure OpenAI, or perhaps you want to connect to AWS Bedrock, that capability is currently in the works. And the use cases that are pretty clearly defined here are obviously, as Jeff's demo, you could always just use a standalone LLM, rely on natural language query and processing. You could also rely on a vector DB. So you can encode data from a Splunk search or Splunk index, tokenize it, and then feed that into your Splunk system, or you could implement a RAG-based approach. And the RAG-based approach allows you to add in this additional context from this document collection. And the coolest thing is if you add that into a Jupyter notebook, now you're able to create like function calls. So you can make different chaining between different functions, which can create very complicated and insightful inferences. So you might be able to run an LLM query to get perhaps an understanding of a document on threat hunting techniques. From there, you might be able to run an SPL query to see if there's any threats that currently in your logs or data match a specific malicious actor or perhaps malicious botnet. From there, you could pull in this vectorized PDF that gives you some remediation techniques. And you can also look at the encoded data that was previously ingested from your index to see if there's perhaps like a pattern. Is there a pattern of events? Have these threats occurred in the past? If they have, what were previous resolutions? So there's a lot of plays that can happen from utilizing function calling and not just a simplified RAG approach. But that's really the power with the DSDL notebooks, is that you're able to now chain these different notebooks together, and you can create this higher level orchestration. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just a high level overview of a simplified architecture. So we have the search head. We're connecting to a Docker container or Docker containers for each of these services. So currently we have a cluster, right? We have the LLM service. We have the DSDL container, which kind of is handling all the load balancing and the calls, and then the vector DB. And there's multiple configurations currently in the works for this too. This is a very simplified architecture. Understand that this capability is also present if there's an air-gapped architecture requirement. So there are ways to deploy this and set this up in an air-gapped environment as well. But overall, the newest additions are this new RAG capability and the ability to leverage and input those RAG functions into notebooks to create chain and orchestrated AI calls. So I'll move on to the next slide. And Jay, I'll pass it on to you about security and monitoring AI.
I think it's possible that Jay's audio previously got hosed. Jay, are you there, or are you needing us to cover for you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, nothing.
Gotcha. We got
Oh,
you.
yes. Yes. Oh, okay.
Oh, we got you.
Please see if that's saved.
Yeah, if you want, I could transition for you here.
Yeah, but go ahead and read us through these ones because it keeps switching back to some unknown.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so another aspect here, right, is so we're allowing Splunk to run AI and ML workloads. And the key point that I want to bring up here is that the real power is in data locality, right? So we're bringing the compute closer to where the data actually lives. And Splunk is a very great data aggregator. The indexing and SPL capabilities are huge. So moving compute and the ability to run AI or ML workloads closer to where the data resides definitely improves performance. It also improves operation and complexity. So here we have a couple docs, right, about responsible AI and securing AI. So we just wanted to share in that information about creating AI that's secure and abides by some governance or ethics policies. So we listed some essential components of AI and governance, but the slides that I'll actually speak to, and you can go next slide for me, Bailey, is more about how this Splunk ability to observe and monitor kind of ties into the larger whole or collective system that we now have, being a part of Cisco. So with Cisco, we have Cisco AI Defense that allows us to not only observe, AI cloud or the infrastructure, but and I'm actually at a Cisco Connect conference today, so I've learned about AI pods, and some other really cool developments that Cisco has in terms of understanding AI infrastructure. There's a partnership with NVIDIA and GPUs there for monitoring. But overall, right, we can securely manage our AI by looking at it from a security standpoint at the infrastructure level, but also looking at it through, perhaps application observability, and that's really how Splunk and Cisco are creating this cohesive capability to secure your applications. We can go next. Yeah, so this kind of ties into the ability to monitor your AI applications. So with Splunk App Dynamics, right? So we're looking at each of the levels, infrastructure, maybe operating system, the switches itself. Then we have the actual application, then the jobs that are working or the different events. So with App Dynamics, we're able to monitor some of those AI features and performance metrics. And we can correlate the model performance there. And this is good too, right? Some of the capabilities, if you look at Splunk, is you could tie that into some ML ops or AI ops. So looking at like model or drift detections, those kinds of things. You can move forward. Okay, and then monitor and observing AI, right? So the key questions are asked for like who, what, where, when, how. Looking at the cost, so we could look at tokens, token usage. We could look at the infrastructure usage. In some cases, perhaps if I guess one of the key aspects that I think is often overlooked is like the financial implications. So you might have a GPU, or maybe you have, certain infrastructure that might be antiquated. Well, what's the financial implication of upgrading your underlying infrastructure to now execute these queries or prompts at a higher speed? Splunk gives you the ability to create dashboards, create insights, to metricize all that data, to not only look at the tech stack, but also, the financial view, the administrative view of all of these AI applications.
Yeah, and
So-
Johan, this is Jeff. I mean, if I could just jump in here really quick, I think the call to action for anyone on this call is, let's assume for a moment that you're the Splunk administrator, or you're with you have a seat at the table in terms of your company's ability to monitor or secure your critical business applications. I guarantee you that your organization is almost certainly currently developing a generative AI application right now. And it's probably a pretty big deal. Generally speaking, these Gen AI initiatives are right this moment. They're board level, initiatives. At a bare minimum, they have high executive visibility. And so, your development teams are currently developing these generative AI applications right now, and they've either already sent them to production or they're about to send them to production. And somebody is sitting there going, how in the hell do we monitor these things? What do we do? What do we look for? What matters? And you can take this slide and you can be a hero with just this slide. It's like saying, look, if we want to monitor and observe these new generative AI applications that we're bringing to market, there's 5 major categories we want to think about: usage, cost, availability, performance, and quality. What do we mean by usage? What do we mean by cost? What do we mean by availability, performance, etc.? It's these things underneath it, right? So who's using the generative AI applications, and how are they using them, and where are they using them from, right? If you look at performance, just like you get on ChatGPT and you type your prompt and you hit go, it takes a moment before the system returns the first word. That's what that time to first token is, right? It also takes a period of time before before the generative AI produces the final result. That's the end-to-end latency. So there's a few, kind of considerations that you want to apply to these generative AI applications. And Splunk can help you monitor and observe those things. And so if you're interested, if you do believe your company has these generative AI applications that are being developed, and you do believe that that folks are kind of scratching their head saying, how in the heck are we going to monitor these things? How in the heck are we going to secure these things? That's a great opportunity to contact your account team and kind of dig in a little bit deeper on Cisco AI Defense, as well as our capabilities that we have in Observability Cloud and App Dynamics to help you guys do that.
Yeah, thanks for that lead in, Jeff. Yeah, and I think the thing in the previous slide too was like forecasting utilization, predicting performance. But also you can take it a step further and look at the GenAI, so the AI ops itself instead of IT ops, right? So you can observe the GenAI performance and not the underlying application or tech stack or infrastructure. So here we're looking at the output and accuracy of validating query responses. You could look at speed or latency or usability. Pipeline monitoring, which is big, especially in traditional MO use cases where you might have a data pipeline where you have to train and retrain, perhaps on a specific time period. Being able to monitor that pipeline, understand if that pipeline is going through that sequential process properly, if the data sources that should be there are actually being received. All of those elements are kind of clear and necessary to observe and monitor. And then the infrastructure and resource utilization, right? So we have the different views. You could look at the partitioning of perhaps a cluster or the CPU or memory of a certain center or tech stack, but also the cost management. How do I manage the overhead or the operationalization? Is there a need to increase my GPUs or to purchase more processing power? So with Splunk, you really have the ability to observe from all these fronts, all these different levels. And that's one of the coolest things is if you can tie all of these data sources together, implement data locality, introduce AI and ML, now you're deriving insights that observe perhaps an entire cluster or center from top to bottom with metro-sized data, and you can create actionable insights from there.
Want to sign up for a future community office hours? From community.splunk.com, select events, then office hours Ask the Experts to register for a session across platform, security, or observability. Hope to see you in the next one.